Okay, for today's Factorio video, let's talk about rail-based transitions. And by that we mean, yeah, the train noise. How do we get trains doing a thing? How do we go from a spaghetti mess? I mean, this is some fairly linear speedrunner stuff, that's fine. But this is a spaghetti mess. This is definitely spaghetti mess. How do we get from that to a nice regular tiled look at my nice power grid patterns, I have all the roboport coverage. How do we get there when you start with something terrible? And yeah, we're going to have a couple of ideas for this. We're not going to go, here's my blueprint, use my blueprint, here's a step-by-step guide, because I don't think that worked quite so well. And also because it changes, like there's a bunch of stuff you want to do differently based on your mod settings, because all of this is mod stuff. And also in your map settings, because I've got a ribbon world, and also actually a 10 times tech multiplier, and that'll change a couple of things as well. So yeah, we're in the point where we've got blue tech, we've got bots, we don't have yellow or purple tech, so we don't have requester chests, we don't have bot speed. There's a bunch of other mod stuff in here which will be, you know, hugely relevant to the rest of the run, but not super relevant in this case to talking about rail grid stuff. But yeah, so what are some things to bear in mind when we want to use bots to build a lot of rail grid? And I guess the first super useful thing to highlight is blueprints. Super useful. If you can set up your absolute tiling blueprint so it tiles at a place that you want, then that'll make expansion a whole lot easier. This particular blueprint is really small and kind of awkward to build in between, which is also kind of the point. I wanted an interesting challenge, and so builds, and this is kind of the first of the builds that's actually on the grid. It's kind of straddling a couple of grid squares, and then we've also even got trains in a third grid tile. So this is kind of an inconvenient and a fun challenge. But yeah, the first thing is have a tiling blueprint. That'll make a bunch of stuff easier. And the second thing to mention is, yeah, so we're doing this with bots, so have a lot of bots. And then also because roboports need to charge your bots, actually there's a couple of reasons for this. A good high priority item to think about when you're first doing a rail grid is some kind of power network stuff, and probably a lot of it. Because the thing is, roboports don't charge bots evenly, so you probably want extra capacity. In fact, can I go even back? Yeah, so this is going to be kind of the first build, and then here are other builds, and you can see this is spiking up and down as bots put down another roboport, and then a bunch of extra things come into build range. Like there's spikes all over the place in this roboport power usage. So first of all, you want, like, it's a good idea to have a lot of power grid, but also you probably want power grid because once you've got a rail base, you're probably building things on the grid, so you probably want more power grid to cover that expansion. So that's also going to be a useful thing. Also, yeah, you don't really need to worry about removing the trees. The bots, especially if you've got blueprints, the bots will just do that for you as they put in the roboports and all the rails and that kind of stuff. So you can just go around figuring out what you're going to build next as the bots are building things a long way away. And have a tiling blueprint. I guess I just quickly, and this is a thing that is easier on a ribbon world, is if you're going to push all the nests out of your cloud, then your bots can just go and build this stuff pretty easily. And I think on the other side, yeah, the other side have kind of gone, here's some defenses because we're not actually going to expand the grid past this point yet. But having your bots expand your grid without encountering biters are just going to be hugely easier. I've also gone for lasers and landmines instead of flamethrower turrets. So flamethrower turrets are great because they do the AoE thing. Landmines also do the AoE thing, and landmines and laser turrets are a whole lot easier for bots to put down than gun turrets that need loading with ammo or flamethrower turrets that need oil or anything like that. Like, I can just copy these and put all these things elsewhere, and as long as I connect to the power, which bots are also pretty good at, that's a new defensive position. So this is also probably more a ribbon world thing than a full map thing, because in a full map you'll be worrying about defending from all directions instead of just here's my fixed points. So yeah, that's a second thing. Make it easier for your bots to go and build the thing. The third thing, and this is probably going to be the most mod specific thing, is you're going to need a lot of roboports, you're going to need a lot of rail, you're going to need probably quite a lot of some particular kind of power pole. Often, I mean, this one of the weird things about this grid block is that it's all small power poles. I don't think there's any big power poles in this. I think I've got big power poles on the edges, but through the middle of this grid is all small power poles. So, I mean, you're going to need a lot of either of those power poles anyway. The point being, oh yeah, mod, I did say this was going to be a mod relevant point. In this mod, the roboports still have pretty much the same recipe, the rails still have pretty much the same recipe, locomotives and cargo wagons and fluid wagons also very similar recipes. So that means you want a lot of steel and you want a lot of red chips, because you're going to need to build a lot of roboports and a lot of rail. And this is another thing that this small grid makes kind of bad, because yeah, if this grid was a little larger, I would need less of all of these things to cover the same space. So I've kind of made this difficult for me, but also still fine. Yeah, these things are also chances are, yeah, you're probably doing either medium or big power pole stuff by the time you're trying to transition into a rail grid, and they also take steel, so a lot of steel is going to be a useful thing. Do I have one of these? I do. Where can... I guess the point of a rail grid is it can go anywhere. Yeah, let's then I think that's almost everything. And the last... Nope, going the wrong way. Cool. Good job understanding a rail grid. Yeah, I think that the last thing to mention, for which we're going back to the main base, yeah, is maybe don't expect to unspaghetti everything at once. Like, this is still mess. I still need to get these starter patches out the way. This is all still hideous. All of this is terrible. And also, this also needs to get out the way before you can really build there. But we do still have... Yeah, getting back to kind of this kind of mall section. We're plugging in resources from the rail base, kind of. I don't think I've plugged all of this in as necessary. But yeah, we're still using the old base to do everything we can and all that we can without stopping it and building an entirely new thing and having everything stuck before that. We've come up with some plan to plug rail-based resources into the old base, and it's just continuing to tick along, which is important for a couple of reasons. Number one, science is still going, which is nice, but also all of the mall stuff also depends on all the resources that we're pulling in from somewhere. So if we've run down starter patches, and also the 10 times tech multiplier I've got makes that significantly more likely. The power poles we need to build, the locomotives, all of that kind of stuff, your base needs the resources to do that. So if you end up cutting your base and trying to build a thing, the worst failure mode there is that you don't have the things you need to build the new base, and the old base is stopped and also not building the things, and you can't quite complete the transition. So that's, I think, most of the things we wanted to talk about. And I've also decided that I had enough bots and didn't need more bots until yellow science, which is ages away because mod stuff, so just completely cut the bots, but whatever. Yeah, I think those are my top tips about transition to railbase. Have a lot of bots, have a lot of power grid, have a lot of steel and red chips, and also landfill and cliff explosives fall into that category as well. Just have, in the general mod case, have the things you need to build your rail grid, and have them kind of in bulk, because you'll probably need them in bulk. Have a lot of roboports. Try and clear biters out of your cloud if you can, and don't expect to be able to unspaghetti your entire base at once, because that's not super realistic and you'll probably just break something. But yeah, expect to tolerate the spaghetti for a bit and then kind of migrate bits out to your rail grid. But yeah, good rail gridding, good time.